Hello, welcome back to another Swans Cast match preview. I'm joined ahead of Swansea versus Watford by Pete from the Do Not Scratch Your Eyes podcast. Always a pleasure to have you on, Pete, but this time on your own. I know normally you've got
Yes.
all here, but kind of my fault because I wasn't able to make the flip of this. So if anyone wants to go catch that, Ben made an appearance this time. And Pete, you can tell us where we can find that. And
That'll be out Saturday evening because we're playing what 3 o'clock on Saturday for a change. Do you remember those 3 o'clock kickoffs?
Oh,
Wow,
yeah. Well,
uh, yeah. So as a lot of our guys will be up in Sheffield, give them something to listen to after our phone in has finished. Hopefully on their way back as they look forward to coming down from Yorkshire and then heading off on the M4 down to see you guys on the midweek.
Yeah, so it's always a little bit tricky with the midweek ones because we've got to kind of go in advance. So we haven't technically played Oxford yet, which I've just actually finished recording that one, which will be up today. We're recording this on Halloween. But this one you won't see until after we've played Oxford, even though I've discussed it before we played Oxford. So bear that in mind with any of the conversation. Same goes with Pete for who are you playing this weekend?
We're playing Sheffield Wednesday. So
yeah.
Another team who can do with us coming along and gifting them 3 points away. Yeah.
But I do you know what every time I speak to you guys, I'm going to say this now. You tell me how bad you are and how much we're going to smash you. I feel like that never happens. So do you know what? I've gone into this one. You're going to smash us. We need the opposite to happen.
Never happened. Never happens. There's me talking about the phone in. It was between Christmas and New Year, not last season, but the season before, when you absolutely smashed us.
Okay, I'll give you that one. I'll give
Our,
you that one.
our phone in that night was legendary.
I'm sure that one though, you probably shouldn't have lost to us heavily. That's probably the one time you should have smashed us. And
Oh well, I mean, no, we've come down and got a few games. I mean, it seems to have been that you kind of tend to do us at our place and vice versa, if it happens at all. But no, this year, no, we're not entirely wretched, but we are completely schizophrenic. At home, we haven't lost since Tom Cleverley took over as interim manager. So it's what 12, 13 games at home now. We've not been beaten. Away, we beat Millwall in the first game of the season. We were 2-0 up. We were coasting. We were playing wonderful stuff. And then we gifted them 2 goals and managed to get literally last kind of smash and grab winner, which should have been a bit easier, but we kind of are our own worst enemies in that regard. Since then, we have not picked up a point on the road. And we have got such seasons going, such as Preston North End, who just were flatlining. Luton Town, yes, our Cardiff equivalent, with our old manager there and everything there. And we were going to go there. Are we going to put the nail in the coffin for him? No. They trounced us 3-0 and we didn't turn up. When we leave WD18, there's something goes missing. Something goes missing. So we'll see whether or not we get anything out of Sheffield Wednesday away, and then coming down to you guys, because we really need to start turning that around, because we're in about joint 6th or 7th because of goal difference or what have you. But we just cannot buy a win away suddenly.
Before I start what I would normally start with the video, I just want to pick up on something you just said.
Sure.
Excuse the crying in the background. To apologise. I'm sure it'll go in a minute.
That's right. I've got a wife as well. Don't worry.
You mentioned your ex-manager going to rival. So when that happened, how did that go down in the fan base?
You got to remember we're Watford. We fire a manager on average every 3.5 weeks, or we did at the time. He'd come in. He'd had 11 games. We didn't think he was the end of the world. We really didn't. But he seemed a really nice guy. I mean, incredibly charismatic and good looking. I mean, Sky started sending better looking reporters just so they didn't all look like orcs in comparison to him. So he came along and did nicely. But he, in terms of playing, not so much. It was a bit Emperor's new clothes. So him getting binned after 11 games, when we were 8th in the league. I mean, our season didn't improve. We ended up about 14th or something along those lines. So there was always sympathy for him there. But of course, when he turfs up at that lot up the road, really, did you have to? But of course he does. He's got to work. He's got to try and get a gig somewhere. And it gave Luton some wonderful free shots at us. things such as, well, we thought the one thing that they'd done really well this year was actually employ him, and they but they couldn't do that for long, so we got him. And of course, that season he then ends up taking them up. So you can imagine how that's feeling. We were heavily involved with a Q&A with our owner because he hasn't spoken to the fans or anybody really for about 11 years, and we got to do a Q&A, so we got to put some questions to him. And one of them was around him, and it was just it didn't work here. It may have worked there, but we'll see. But it doesn't seem to have worked there. They seem to have got up for that one game against us, and since then they haven't had the uh, whatever it takes. He keeps coming on. It's about 6 times now when he's come back out and gone, no, this is on me. It feels like he's trying to get the tin tack half the time. I'm sure he's not, because I'm not really that worried about them. Obviously, I just enjoy the results. But yeah, so some people went, look, including Justin, said, well, I've got nothing against him. Myself and Carlos, who are far more, kind of rabid, went, yeah, but he's there, so he's now one of them.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't had one of us hot chip recently. There's been a few players that have crossed the enemy lines, if you like, but not manager in recent times anyway. So if that happens, I guess we'll see what the reaction is, but I can't imagine it would go down too well down here. Same as kind of what you just said, I would imagine. But yeah, especially if it's success, the other side. I think if you're the first club, get rid, and then they go to the other club and it's success. Got to be hard to see that happen. Okay, I just want to revisit last season before we kind of talk more about the season and this match in particular. How did it go? What did you expect at the beginning of last season? And was the result anywhere near what your expectations were? Like, what was the comparison there? How was the season really in regards to what you expected it to be?
Last season was supremely strange. We started it off with Valerian Ismail, and the club seemed to want to try to make sure they didn't sack him, basically, having done so frequently for a long period of time. You'll remember we beat QPR in the opening game of the season 4-0. We were 4-0 up by half time, and we were kind of, we were already plotting the European campaign 2 years hence. We thought that this is great. We're brilliant, aren't we? Forward wind about 10 games, and I think we'd won 1 and lost 7. I mean, it was just not great. And
I think
then
that's about when I spoke to you and you said that
yeah.
you were so bad, and and then you came down here and won.
Well, yours was the second game, if I remember rightly. I think that we won because, ironically, we beat Sheffield Wednesday at home, who again we'd said, "Oh no, we're awful." They said we're awful, but we now got this new manager, Danny Roll. So his first game was against us. We won that 1-0, kind of against the run of play. We won against you guys. Could have gone either way. Let's be honest. I think if I remember rightly, you had a goal disallowed
Yeah,
for
Darlin had a goal disallowed, which I don't
yeah
really know why to this day, to be honest.
for basically scoring a goal in South Wales, which
Yeah, yeah. Well, it sounds like it's a bit of a crime at the moment, to be fair. So.
technically a booking offence, clearly. And we got on a roll, and we got on a run, and we thought, wow, we're really kind of doing nicely here, and we're up in and around the playoffs after this false start. We got through to Boxing Day, and Bristol City came and utterly hammered us 4-1. 4-1 does not do it justice. Absolutely played us off the park. And thereafter, we couldn't buy a win. I think we had a couple of 1-0s against people like Rotherham, who were, being splatted left, right, and centre all the time. Had nothing at all, to the point whereby I think he had one win after that, as I say, after Boxing Day, including Boxing Day. And then they brought in mid-March Tom Cleverley, who's now our manager, and we got a win against Birmingham. The reason it was looking panicky was because we were kind of 8th for a long period, and then we went down to 9th, and we're just not picking up points. But nobody else is really. It was an odd championship. Nobody seemed to be able to kind of pick up the cudgels from below us and move up. But we knew that we can't see where a win is coming from because we simply haven't had one, in about 3 months. And it was getting really scary. And Tom's first game in charge, he came in and we beat Birmingham 1-0. Now, as it finished, we got lots and lots of draws, so we kind of accrued the points. It was safely done, but we finished, because we weren't getting wins, 6 points off of Birmingham. So that first game, you take 3 points off us and give it to them, we could have been down even with the improvement under Tom. So what everybody looked at was from that point from March on, they looked at least coherent. They looked like they were fighting. They were working to make sure that we were tough to beat at the back, and we were hoping that this season we were going to kind of see a little bit more. We're always going to play a trade, but we were hoping there would be some player investment as well. And that took an awful long time. And then we sold people like Kone. We sold the aforementioned Aspria, and one or two others had left. Loneys returned. People like Hamer, who did great service for us. He's now up at Sheffield Wednesday, and Jake Livermore, who I think has probably semi-retired now, who stepped in and been a really useful kind of squad player, had been kind of pushed to one side and not included. So it took a long time to literally just before the season started for us to actually see any form of activity that might enthuse us. But even that has been a bit of a false dawn, because we won our first 5 games this season, including the League Cup, and we won 5 straight, and it was fantastic. And then we went on a bit of a drop because we lost to Sheffield United before the international break, and then we didn't really kind of quite get going properly thereafter. And now we're sort of on this win or draw at home, lose away, and that's our current theme. We had in the middle of that, it was something like 6 games where we conceded a goal in the first 4 minutes, and it's like you just can't keep giving people opportunities to gain a head start before we wake up. Leeds United, we were 2-0 down inside of 7 minutes, and ironically, I think it was the first game since the opening game of the season where we scored first was when we beat Sunderland. When we beat Blackburn at home on Saturday.
So back-to-back away games now, and go Sheffield Wednesday before you play us.
Yeah,
you know the result by the time this video is out, everyone. So you'll see if the trend has been
bucked.
You bucked the trend. Yeah, sorry, I lost my words then. I mean, coming up against us, we really are struggling to score. So whether we get that early goal you just mentioned, and if you kind of let us in early or not, if you look at the trends for what our season's been so far, it hasn't been so much in the last couple of games because they've been quite dull and disappointing. But before that, there seemed to be a bit of a theme that we would come out really strong in the first half, create not an abundance of chances, but kind of be in control of the game, dominate the ball, dominate the opposition, not do as much with it as we should, and go in half time either 1-0 up or 0-0. And then the second half was a different game, essentially. That's been our season, other than the odd few matches that we've just played, where it's kind of fallen off a bit. Whether the reason it's fallen off is because of all these things we haven't taken our chances in the past, and now the confidence is down and they're really struggling. And now they've got the next thing, which is haven't scored in 5 games. So that's on the back of your mind, and don't really know what the solution is at this point. We just need to get some goals. So it'll be interesting to see if you can kind of help us out, or whether we do another blank. And that's probably even more concerning again then if we do go down that road where you're telling me these things, you've got these concerns, and we still can't capitalise, So it'll be interesting for sure, midweek as well. So,
well, I mean, our Achilles' heels, if you like, are at the moment are our first class, if you will, midfield, and I use the word first class in the not really quite sense of the word, is Musa Sissoko, who is 36, and a guy called Tom Dele-Bashiru, who really isn't a defensive midfielder, takes a few too many touches, but he's quite a class act when he's at it. And when he's on it, but he's now out with an injury. So we've got him. We've had to move KMB back because what we've been doing is playing a 3-4-2-1. And part of what Tom did really well, because everybody was playing 4-3-3, and you'd have an isolated centre forward and then 2 wingers either side. And we were as guilty of that, or a 3-4-3, but in the same way. What he did was moved us to this 3-4-2-1, and he'd move what had been forced into an inverted winger role, really they're number 10s, because that's what the Pozzo family seem to identify, because it's going to go for good money. The likes of João Pedro, for example, and now Brighton. Excuse me, sorry. We'd identify those kind of players and they bring them in, but they wouldn't really be a winger. They'd need to want to be behind the front two, or the front one in this particular instance. So now we've done that. KMB has had to be moved back because he was a bit more of a defensive, but still a number 10. So he's our leading scorer from that position. But now he's going to have to be playing a bit deeper. But we have gone and got some interesting players. Chak Fatadze, who you might have seen last year, but probably wouldn't have woken you up anytime soon in a seat watching him. Went off to the Euros with Georgia, and we were looking at it going, wow, he's a good player. Who's he? Oh, that's the one who plays for us, really? And he came back and carried on that way. He's really been good, but his goals, he got a couple of goals and an assist in the first 3 or 4 games of the season, nothing since. So he's a good ball carrier and he causes ructions, but he's almost become one of those people who causes the problem and then kind of lays the ball off, and then the person will put the assist in, if that makes sense. We've not been very good at converting chances anyway, but he hasn't got on that kind of on those kind of statistically very well recently, but he can carry the ball and just run Forest run is the kind of the thing that I tend to shout when he's getting it and he's carrying it, because he's very, very robust and hardworking in that Georgian kind of sense of the word, if anybody saw him in the Euros. But we've got a lad called Rocco Vata, who looks now like he's coming in to play in those roles. He was he's only 19, 20, brought in from Celtic B, and we thought Celtic B, no, that might not be great because they all play in the Lowlands League, which is like tier 5 in Scotland. And we kind of probably looked down our nose a little bit. That was a wrong thing to do. He's a bundle of fun. So as and when he gets it, he can shoot from range, but he's also got a drop of a shoulder and can go past people. So we've got a number of people who can play, but we really don't have a settled forward. We've got Bio, who you'll have seen over the last 2 years be, crikey, what's the phrase? Flattered to deceive, because he scores 1 or 2 worldies every season, but he's a scorer of great goals, not a great goal scorer, but he's also not the greatest to play with his back to goal, and he has been dropped. We bought Jebison in, Daniel Jebison from, he was at Sheffield United. He got a move in the season, in the close season, to Bournemouth, having been out for a year with a blood clot, so he's hardly played. Bournemouth take him, and he's impressed them to such an extent that they got him out to us straight away, presumably to try and work off his illnesses or whatever it was. Well, he still looks like he's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders, and isn't being what is expected of him as of yet. A lot of people have, said, "Oh, that's it," and marked him down. He's probably played 200 minutes of football, something like that, in drabs, and you've got to let the lad get up to speed and have a go at it. But I've got sympathy with the people who've looked at it, because there has been nothing to point at to think, yeah, he's a good player. And the reason why he's important is he was the reason, getting him in was the reason we let in a guy called Mileta Rajovic go back on loan to Brøndby in Denmark, which is where he's from, because he basically all he did was score goals, but he scored goals, including that last minute winner away from home against Millwall. So it's an odd one. Not all things are firing. We've kind of changed the shape on a couple of occasions to almost like a 5-3-2, but even that 2 up front is more like a 1-1. If you know what I mean, to try to make ourselves a little less porous. And we've got Dan Backman in goal, which means you've always got a puncher's chance, because at the moment his favourite thing is having the ball come across him and not really having the awareness that he could let that ball run through. He kind of gets a hand to it and steers it towards a Leeds or a Blackburn striker. Leeds scored their second goal in 7 minutes that way, having thrown the first one in under 3 minutes. Blackburn fortunately hit the bar and we went on to win. So even with those home wins, there has been a large element of luck, as I kind of started with. So no, we're not the finished article. Everybody loves Tom Cleverley and want him to stay, because I say we sack everybody every 3.5 weeks. It's you don't want that. Nobody wants that.
No.
Nobody wants to constantly have that, and even when he's going to become a future Luton Town, manager / head legend, we don't want that. So yeah, it's an odd one. It's an odd one, but hey, it's the Championship, so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I know. It's a crazy league. I think, as you said
Yeah,
something earlier about last season being no one wanted to pick up points. It feels like that a little bit sometimes at the moment in the midfield. We've been slowly travelling down, but it's crazy what one win can sometimes do. Although maybe it takes longer to fall. It's weird. It's a weird league. You mentioned quite a lot of things I was going to ask you about anyways, like your formation, the style of play that
yeah.
maybe we're going to expect to see from you. If you could pick maybe one key player for us to have a look at, I know you did go in on a few players there, but is there one person you think Swansea need to really be wary of going into this game?
Sure, I'll go with the player that I didn't mention because we've got a lad called Quadwo Bar, which is a fantastic name, and as I
Yeah,
always say, he's my very favourite Quadwo. And we got him from Rochdale about 2.5 seasons ago,
yeah,
and and the people at Rochdale said, "Oh, blimey, what have you done here?" He's not all that. He went off on loan to play in Germany because he's actually got German nationality and he plays in German under-19s. And he the person I can most compare him to is Adama Traore, the one who was at Wolves and is now at Fulham, because he looks like somebody who's an Olympic-sized weightlifter, but he's actually a speedy winger with pace, power, no small amount of skill. I mean, he goes into challenges and comes out with the ball, and you're going, wow. And I think it was last season he went to Burton Albion in League One, didn't set the world alight. Whatever Tom Cleverley has done has got this guy into absolute form of his life. And it doesn't feel like it's going away anytime soon because pace and power doesn't leave you. His dribbling ability hasn't left him. He scored a great goal. We got drawn against Man City in the League Cup in the third round. And needless to say, we went 1-0 down after 3 minutes. We are Watford after all. And he equalised. We were 1-1. And then it was basically disallowed on the basis that one of their younger defenders who they brought in because it was the League Cup, who was still playing alongside John Stones and Carl Walker and the great and the good,
yeah,
bounced off of him. Now he's been used primarily as an impact sub, if you will,
yeah,
but been getting starts now playing down the centre because of the reasons I mentioned earlier on, and then he's been moved out wide right. When he goes wide right, he is genuinely fearsome and fearful and creates a hell of a lot of problems. I mean, we won the game against Blackburn with a penalty, but it was no surprise that it came once they'd decided to move him from the centre forward position, bring on Bar, and then he tore down the right hand side. He can kind of get across his left, the opposition left back on the line and kind of drive in, and then put the ball across. And one thing or another led to a header, which led to a penalty with a handball. He's done that in game after game after game. So yeah, no, Quadro Bar. I think he will probably be after Chakfatadze, probably the next one that somebody in the Premiership will come along and go, yeah, you got a game changer there. We'll snaffle him away.
okay. So you'd say I just said two names. I can't repeat the names. You're gonna have to repeat the names. The
Yeah,
two players you just mentioned. So Chakvatadze,
Chakfatadze. We've called him
yeah,
Dave for 18 months.
right.
I think you
Dave,
should as
Dave.
well.
Yeah, I remember that. You told me the story
Yeah,
there. So let's say Dave Chakvatadze, Quadro Bal,
yeah.
and then just say the name of another undroppable player.
Undroppable.
Yeah, that you would say just on the team. You did really just pick another one.
Undoubtedly, a player who has improved exponentially again under Tom. He's been a guy called Matty Pollock.
Right. So Matty
Um,
Pollock, before we get into him, just got a quick question. And
yep.
obviously Ben went onto your podcast and he did tell me a question you asked him. So you asked him Liam Cullen, Mac Rhymes, and
Yes.
Vigoro, and it was keep one, sell one, and loan one. So there's your three players. Same question: keep one, sell one, and loan one.
Okay. Well, the history of Matty Pollock is
Okay.
he played against Millwall. He had one of those 50p headers. You know when you go, oh right, he's big and he's strong and he's going to be a really good defensive header, and it came off at a horrible angle. And I can't remember the forward's name, Bradshaw at Millwall. he went on, buried it, and then went had a first half hat trick. And you could just see this lad. This was 2 years ago. Youngster bought him from Grimsby. He just went, and he'd already been on loan at Cheltenham and done well. He then went out to Aberdeen, came back and had that, and he's had to kind of pick himself up. He is now undroppable. So I would definitely send out on loan, because every time we do, he gets better. There you go.
Yeah.
So I'll do that. I'm going to keep Quadro Bar, simply because my favourite line now is he's my favourite Quadro. No, he's just unbelievable to watch. We were. I mean, you've had a lot of tricky wingers in your time, and there's nothing quite like, oh, we've got it, and you kind of sit forward on your seat and you kind of, and that's what he is. And so in a way is Chak Fatadze, but he's been linked with Wolves already in the January transfer window, and it feels like, look, if they weigh in with 25 million or what have you for him, he'll go, and then we'll bring the next cab off the rank from the Ecuadorian second division or somebody or other, who will be, floating around and then look brilliant in about a year and a half, and then we'll sell him, and the thing carries on. That's what I'd do. Loan Matty Pollock, because he knows how to do it. I definitely want to keep him, ideally. So the loan would be a month and no more. Quadro Bar, keep him, because I just think he's an absolute joy. Chak Fatadze, grab the money and scramble.
Too easy, that was. Too easy. Ben told us the question, and we were discussing it in our little chat then. Did he say keep Grimes, loan Vigoro, and sell Cullen?
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and the fact that Cullen's just signed a new contract, of course, is a typical Watford and Pozzo move. Well done. Here's a
Yeah,
five-year contract. Now, let me introduce you to the manager you're now going to be playing for. Yeah, it's one of those. Well,
I think
because
it
as
was
you
a case
know,
of Cullen's not scoring what we need to score. I don't know. It's a hard decision, to be fair.
well, it is. As you know, I was just looking for a chink of armour to come and get Matt Grimes, because he is still much
Yeah,
coveted at Watford. He is exactly the player we need.
hands
Somebody
off.
who can sit at the back but can progress the ball forward. And I know he goes sideways and back and what have you, but when he gets you rolling, that's
The
yeah.
sideways backwards is not a criticism for me. I think it's part
Oh
of
no,
what
it's
he's
not.
being asked to do. That's the game. You want to play possession-based football, you need to recycle the ball. So he's the person tasked to doing that.
No.
Halloween tonight, not bonfire night, but there we go. Apparently, it's a bit of both. Grimes. I was going to ask you the last question before we get to the end was about a Swansea City player you look at and maybe worries you going into this game, and maybe you were already going to answer it with Grimes, or was there someone else on your radar?
I think Grimes is, as I say, genuinely, I think we were linked with him when we were in the Premier League at one point,
Yeah,
and
I
there
think
was
it's
like
been a few
10
summers that he pops up with the Watford radar, I think.
yeah, we like, and we've kind of watched him vicariously from afar, going, oh, why couldn't we have had him? He would have been a great replacement for Will Hughes when he went off to Crystal Palace. So that he would be there. Very pleased that, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to be familiar with the name, but the fact
No,
that
that's
your
okay.
little left winging North Korean or South Korean,
Yeah, South Korean, yeah.
he looks a. I've done.
Because I was saying about goal scoring problems in the one injury, and probably, but we're quite sparse up that area of the pitch, and it has made a difference. So you're right in saying that you're glad that he's not going to be playing.
Yeah. So I think those are the two main ones. I think those would be the two main ones. I don't know enough about
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Vopotnik or what have you to really comment on him, but it's felt like, because you had Jerry Yates, but that didn't seem to work.
Yeah, it's the system. I think it doesn't matter what play you put in. Like I said, Callan just now, it just, to me at the moment, part of our issue is it doesn't matter what striker you got on the pitch.
Mhm.
There's something tactically not working with our attack. That means we can't get that player, whoever it is, into the game enough to actually be able to do a job of a striker. Now, they're then getting a lot of criticism from the fans saying they're not good enough, they can't score goals, they don't get involved in the, you know what I mean? All these things. But for me, when you've played, you can go back to last season, and I don't think Yates scored a league goal for Luke Williams after he took over.
Yeah.
You've got obviously Cullen now. There's a few goals there this season for him. Vipotnik's on one. The constant theme is the strikers are just not involved. We have 60, 70% of the ball the last few games. And you just think, how can you not create more chances with that much of the ball? And if you look at where the chances are coming from and look at the heat maps and look at where the players, we're really good up to the final third. We're really good getting into the wide areas, but we're not really good getting into the box at all. And the striker's the only player. You said about the system issues you've had earlier, having an isolated striker in the 4-3-3 or whatever.
Absolutely.
And I just think they are very isolated. So when you're trying to cross in, whether it's low, whether it's high, whatever, if he's one striker up against 3 defenders or 2 defenders and there's no one in a box supporting him, that's part of the issue. And I think another part of what we are having issues with is, for whatever reason, Luke Williams is asking whoever's playing behind the striker to play a little bit more wider. So they're playing as a cam on their own in a 4-3-3. But quite often we're focused on going wide with our attack, not really through the middle. We're always wide. And he's asking the cam to kind of support whatever side the ball is on. So they'll play their little triangles, keep the ball. He'll drift out wide to support that. They might cut in either himself, Ollie Cooper, for example, or the winger will cut in. They'll either do a shot from outside the box, sometimes, not very often, or a cross of some capacity. Because the cam is there, you haven't got a midfielder pushing in either. You've just got the striker on their own in the box, and that's our issue with the strikers. So for Potnick, yeah, he went to the Euros. I would imagine is a good player there. He came on against England as a substitute, I think, in the Euros. And you don't get there, if you haven't got something about you. We haven't seen it yet, but I don't think we've allowed him to show it yet, really. So I think it's harsh the criticism he sometimes getting from the fans is harsh. I couldn't tell you how good a player he is yet because I don't think we've been allowed to see it.
Yeah. And I think we've absolutely had the same problem as I'm talking about the 2 forwards. Or our main 2 forwards, and therefore, we were kind of frustrated with the other one who did score, but literally did nothing else. And I watched him against Copenhagen for Bromby at the weekend, and he did exactly the same thing again. He wasn't really the answer then, but it's always amazing how the player, when he's not in the side, for many people, that was the right answer. And it was like, yeah, but your team never gets to play, so who knows? There is another thing that when Tom came in and brought these guys in from being inverted wingers into kind of central number 10s. So it is a little bit more central. So for width, we're playing with wing backs in that 3-4-2.
Yeah.
And we took from loan, yes, I'm very sorry, everybody, from Udinese. We've been wanting this guy for the best part of 2 years. Is a guy called Festi Ebeselli, who was with Wayne Rooney at Derby when he couldn't sign anybody. And they had this kid who was like, he was probably about 18 or something at the time. They couldn't sign anybody else. He can play left wing, left wing, left back, right wing back. And the last game we played, he was absolutely on fire. And we've already got a lad called Ryan Andrews, so you've got some real competition there. So he's getting forward really nicely. And then when you see somebody like Quadro Bar, who can play central, but also isn't fearful about going wide and creating some overloads, that's where we sort of start to come alive. Part of what Tom cleverly seems to do, to my mind, is make sure, kind of in the same way as you kind of mentioned earlier on, get to half time, and then we'll kind of manage the game in that second half to kind of open up a little bit more. So sometimes we're a little bit more, we're a little bit more defensive. You can understand why, because we kept conceding goals. So you can see where that particular plan was breaking down. But you tend to see, not with the change of shape, but with the change of the kind of emphasis that the personnel give when they're plugged into those particular positions, that, we're going to try and keep it tight, and then we will affect the game. And he's done that well on a number of occasions. On a couple of other occasions, it hasn't worked so well, but hey, them's the breaks. It's the Championship after all.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be an interesting one. Do you have a score prediction then, maybe what you expect going into this? I do think you're right. You're probably going to keep it tight. We can't score. We haven't lost by more than one all season. We've only scored more than one, I think, twice. So I don't imagine to be an abundance of goals. So what do you think is going to be the outcome?
I'm gonna completely cheat and have 2. It's either going to be 3. It's either going to be 3-0 to you. Preston could not do a thing until we turned up into town, and they turned up, and we were rubbish. We in the first half, Preston were rubbish. By the end, they were 1982 Brazil in their prime, because it was like, wow, this lot really aren't hitting back, are they? So it'll either be you'll come alive and click, and Grimes will be, an annoying person that we salivate over again, or we will come and we will come and nick a hard-earned 1-0 win by keeping it tight, and then Quadwo or one of those other little aces in the hole, or Rocco Vata or Chakvatadze or something. You know, we've got some quality in there. We really do. So if that comes alive and works well, so I'm either having 3-0 to you or 1-0 to us.
It's very opposite ends of the spectrum. You're braver than me picking 3 Swansea goals. We haven't scored in 5 matches, mind. You realise that, yeah?
You are underestimating the power of Watford's inability to turn up on match day away from home. Honestly, Deepdale, it was like the Maracanã. It really was by the end of our venture there. And then you're looking for a reaction. We beat Middlesbrough 2-1 at our place, and you're thinking, brilliant. Okay, we've 3-0 was a blip, and we go to Luton, who haven't won since like February or something, or they've won a couple of games, but that's been it. 3-0 we get done again, and we're even more insipid away from home. We need to break this hoodoo dreadfully.
Well, let's see.
It starts on Saturday.
We both got a bit of hoodoo. Let's see if they cancel each other out. Maybe Ben will be right and his 0-0 prediction will come in instead. But
very possible.
Thank you for coming on, Pete. Can you remind everyone where we can find all of your amazing content? And it is a good laugh listening to your podcast, so I recommend it highly.
Yeah, no, we are the less serious side of following Watford, bearing in mind, hey, we're Watford. What are you going to do? So if you're following people on Twitter and you haven't given up because of Elon Musk, then we are at DNSYE_podcast. But we're also just available on DoNotScratchYourEyes.com, which has got links to everything else that we do, because we've got YouTube and we do an after show, and we do all sorts of stuff, basically because if it makes us laugh, well, if it makes anybody else laugh, that's simply a bonus. So
yeah, well, it definitely makes me laugh when I come on, and I know Ben was very he enjoyed it a lot as well. So thanks for having us as always, and thanks for coming on here. And I'm sure we'll speak again later in the season. I'll probably catch up with Justin at some point in between. I've already spoke to him once this season, so yeah, that's going good too. So check that out on Talk. Was it Thursdays is on, isn't it? So
it was on Wednesday this week, but it was on Thursday. So I jumped in for him a few weeks ago, which was a lot of fun. And the producer said, because it's you, I'll give you Carl, who's from Do Not Scratch Your Eyes. So there's me and Carl trying to talk about Watford. The previous night we'd lost 3-0 at Preston. Honestly,
I'm sure that was a good listen then.
It was like 2 bald men fighting over a comb. We were so depressed. But other than that, it was fine. And who was the next person on? That's right, Preston. Brilliant.
But yeah, they do a great job on there. Obviously, we've been on there for the Swans a few times, but yeah, doing an amazing job, and it's good to be part of. So thanks for all of that. But yeah, we'll catch you again later in the season. Good luck for the rest of the season, other than Tuesday, of course, where hopefully we can. Well, maybe we'll both break our hoodoo and we'll draw like 3-3 or 2-2 or something, and be okay with it, both of us. But we'll see.
We'll see. Well, 3 points from the next 2 games. I'm not worried which that'll do. So you can have one, we'll have the other. Yeah.
Yeah. So deal. Thank you very much. See you again.